Hey everybody, this is your remote day normally, but I thought I would introduce this film because what we're going to do is spend the two classes this week, your remote day and then your new remote day, um, watching the film. And I thought I would introduce it quickly today. I'm not going to spend much time. Just a quick little 5-minute video, I think. So we're going to watch Annihilation. This is a pretty recent film. It came out in 2018, and it's also written and directed by Alex Garland. Alex Garland wrote and directed Ex Machina. Okay, so Ex Machina was before this. It was maybe 2000, I'm going to say 15 or 16. And this is Garland's follow-up. Now, he wrote Ex Machina, conceived of it, wrote the screenplay himself, and directed it. Kind of makes him an auteur, right? Like that story, that movie is his vision. And then Annihilation, he did not write the concept of Annihilation. Annihilation had been a novel, but then he wrote the screenplay to adapt the novel to be a film and directed the film. So again, I would consider Alex Garland an auteur who develops projects based on his view of the world, on his desire to make a certain kind of art. Um, so Annihilation, it's not a good title. I mean, I think it's a very appropriate title once you see the film, but it's hard to remember the title. It sounds like some generic horror movie or action movie or something. It's really a beautiful and horrifying film, and it's much kind of bigger than Ex Machina. What I really like about Ex Machina is that it's got these philosophical ideas, but they're really tightly compacted into a very controlled situation. Right, the outside world doesn't play much role. We're kind of in a little microcosm through the whole film of Ex Machina, really restricted to the compound, the lab, where Ava is created. And it's not until the very end that she gets out. And we see some of the natural world, yeah, and all that. But it's really a very tight little movie. Annihilation is much more broad. We don't know what's around the corners. The world moves in unexpected directions, in very long directions. It's a full universe that we're dealing with in Annihilation, a broader style of movie. So I think it's more approachable for that reason. It feels more like a world as opposed to a room. And let's see, what else do I have for slides? So we know Alex Garland did all this stuff, and here's why we're watching it. Partially because it's Alex Garland, all right? And so it comes on the heels of Ex Machina. Ex Machina raised a lot of questions, kind of stemming off of her, right, in terms of what is life, what's the meaning of life, what's the nature of existence? Can man create life? Is that God's role? Is that religion? Where does science and religion intersect? Like, it raises so many philosophical questions. What is our purpose for even being here? All of this are kind of embedded in these movies, and science fiction does that really, really well. I never used to be a science fiction fan, but then I sort of realized you can take this, you can create a world in science fiction, and you can tell a metaphoric story. You can get at abstract ideas like the nature of existence, like the nature of love. And then you can create a fantasy world, a fake world, one that doesn't exist in our real world, where your images, your mechanisms in that world, the logic of that world, reflect your big idea, reflect your abstract idea. And so then it gives the viewer something concrete to look at, to observe, while they're playing around with these lofty philosophical ideas. Science fiction does that really, really well. I think Star Trek started doing that a lot in the 60s, and just the ability to get off of our rules of reality allows our minds to expand and to conceive of different ideas. So that's part of what we're watching for. Natalie Portman is Lena in this film. It's her story. So the nice thing about this film is that, again, we have a strong female lead. It's kind of mythological, it's kind of sciencey, it's kind of an alien movie, and it asks more questions than it answers. So it might drive some of you nuts. I really like this kind of a film as far as raising philosophical ideas. But once you open a can of worms of philosophy, it just leads to more questions and more worms, I suppose. It is very, very quiet and intense at times. It's very, very beautiful at times, and it's horrifying at times. There are jump scares in it. There is an element of horror to it. There's an element of the classic war movie to it, and then there's an element of the art film to it, particularly toward the end. And so there's all these different pieces together. It's hard to classify. I mean, we can just call it sci-fi, which is a very broad term. Makes it because it's difficult to pigeonhole this film. So I guess we're really watching for the unexpected beauty of the film. And perhaps that's why we have so many female characters, is because this alien form going out into this world with M16s or whatever those big guns that they have that you saw in the movie poster. In a man's world, that is almost always a war movie. That is almost always an attack, an assault, a defense, whatever verb you want to use. It's violence. And in this film, Alex Garland, or well, the author, I can't remember the author of the book, but the author of the original book made all of these women scientists, and yet they are working for the military, so they have to have these sort of high caliber weapons. So they look like a platoon, but they've got science minds, and they're female, and there's something different about that. We don't see, like there's the Bechdel test, right? Like where you don't, there aren't a lot of films that have strong female characters, let alone multiple female characters. And like this is really like Oscar Isaac is in it a little bit, but basically this is the top billing on this movie are all female protagonists, and yet it feels like an action kind of film that would be a traditionally male film. So it's kind of cool in that way. Yeah, I've been lingering on this image because it's beautiful and horrifying, and that. Play intro. That's for my second part after we've seen the film, so I'm not going to do that. There's my face. I thought I was going to have that floating over everything, but I guess I wasn't. So you missed out a little bit on my face. Sorry. So that's Annihilation. Look for themes of existence, of what the existence is all about, what our purpose in life here is, what humanity is, what evolution is, what mutation is. Like the science of the movie is going to call change different things, mutation versus evolution, and they're all kind of the same thing, change. So. One more thing. As you're watching, I know a lot of us are very like cinematographers. We're cinematographically inclined. Finally got the word out. The images in this film are really beautiful and horrific, but there's a lot of like reflection. There's a theme that runs through of mirroring back actions that we see, mirroring back behaviors that we see, and thus we'll see, if you're looking closely, you'll see reflections. You'll see anytime that you have water in a glass and you shoot through the glass, what's on the other side is upside down or flipped. There's a reflection. So look for glasses of water, as silly as it sounds, because these shots, when you notice them, you'll notice things coming at each other from different directions. You'll notice reflections. You'll notice mirroring. And since that's a part of the philosophy of the film, the filmmakers have also given it as part of the visual of the film. And that's really what interests me the most in cinematography, is when the images can enhance, draw attention to, and then take further this idea that the intellectual author or director had for making the film. So watch for that. Watch really for the artistry of the camera work, the cinematography, and the beauty of the image. It's a beautiful film to watch. I guess that'll be it. So however long this video was, let's call it 9 minutes. Go ahead and watch Annihilation. This will be your work for today, remote day, as well as your in-person day, Friday. Since it's a 2.5-hour film, that will fill your whole bill. I'm going to give you a remote assignment a week from now. Okay, so next Tuesday, when it's another regular remote class that asks you some questions and asks you to do a little bit of writing about Annihilation. Not a lot, but be sure to have finished the film by then. Okay, but otherwise your time is your own to figure out how you're gonna watch it and break it up. You could watch it all today. You could watch it a little today and a little Friday. You get the idea. Goodbye. Have a wonderful day, and I will see you around the pixel sphere. Yeah.